Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. The Banzuke is out for May 2025, and we have some things to talk about, but they are not the things I expected we would have to talk about. So let's just get into this. Starting at the top, of course, we have Hoshoryu, he is the Yokozuna. We've got Onosato and Kotozakura, where they're supposed to be, Daisho, where he's supposed to be. So Kirishima and Takayasu, we got this one right. Kirishima was given priority. He was the Komusubi at 8 and 7, Takayasu 12 and 3 at Maegashira 4. Now, I would like to take credit for this being a good guess, and that, my thought that Takayasu, he was coming up from Maegashira 4, so he was still getting a decent promotion either way. They wouldn't feel compelled to move him to Sekiwake because otherwise he'd move almost nowhere. I would love to say that that is totally what happened and clearly correct, but I think maybe we got a little bit lucky, because they changed how they did things, and that's going to become clear as we go through this. Anyway, Kiri and Takayasu are right. Wakataka Kage, of course Wakamoto Haru, as most of us figured, did not get promoted to Komusubi. He stayed at Maegashira 1. Oho, Abi, glad I was right there. And then we get to a whole lot of fun stuff, and a sign that they have, at least for the moment, decided to change how they do things. How permanent this is, I don't know. And, well, it's not. Nothing is permanent with this stuff. But how long is this going to last? I don't know. So, Gonoyama was 7 and 8 at Maegashira 2 East. Tamawashi was 10 and 5 down at Maegashira 7 West. For Tamawashi to go up +5, and then Gonoyama to drop down -1 would have made perfect sense. That's what I assumed. I think that's what a lot of people assume. The fact that they only bumped Gonoyama down a half a rank and kept him ahead of Tamawashi, although that doesn't make the most sense mathematically, quote unquote, they are not beholden to the math. And the fact that they did this for a guy who was in the Joy versus a guy who was in the mid ranks, it's not completely out of line. It's surprising in that it goes against their recent tendencies, it goes against the math, etc., but it's not completely out of whack. That's fine. This is one of those things that you're gonna get it wrong a lot of the time, and that's okay. But what happened here? What is this? What did they do? What were they Okay, look, this is, look, you know I don't mind good things happening for my boy Pinky, but this one, I have said so much shit. I have talked so much shit about Chiyoshima being up at this rank, like he's gonna get smashed, and I have given him his credit. He has done better than I expected. So why in the world? I'm not gonna bring the guess the Banzuke thing back. I'm just gonna write this stuff down. Let's remember what happened in the last Basho. Ichi Yamamoto, 7 and 8 at this exact rank. He was 4 West. Ura, 7 and 8 at this exact rank, 5 East. So they went no move, right? They did not go anywhere. They stayed in place, okay? Chiyoshima was 6 and 9 at Maegashira 2 West. Now let's be really clear about this. Maegashira 2 West has a schedule of death. Maegashira 2 West gets absolutely murdered in a way that 4 West and 5 East generally do not. Because not only does 2 West, the guys at the top basically, they have to fight the Sanyaku early. They have to fight basically the whole Sanyaku right up front. Now, 4 West and 5 East, they should have to fight the whole Sanyaku or nearly the whole Sanyaku, but they at least get to do that at the end. Chiyoshima has to go through that whole gauntlet and get his ass beat and then go through the last, whatever it ends up being, in this case, like 8 more days of the Basho, with whatever bruises and beatings he took from the top guys. So that is a more difficult schedule. He was only 1 win worse. Why in the world? I'm going to clear this because we got to just clarify what happened here. 7 and 8. Okay. Chiyoshima here, 6 and 9. This should be equivalent. That should be about equal. Now, if you decide, like I said with Ura and Tobizaru, if you decide that Ichi Yamamoto should go ahead of Chiyoshima, then okay, that's fine. That's not a big deal. But then why is Ura ahead of Chiyo? Because Ura at 7 and 8, he's already behind where Chiyo should end up. Even if you want to be nice to him, there is this, I don't know. This, I don't know why they did that. It does not make sense. This is the most mindless. Okay. When they kept Nishiki Fuji at Maegashira 17 East at 6 and 9, and they kept Hokuto Fuji at his spot, think 13 East in that Banzuke, at 6 and 9, and we were all like, what is happening? There was a certain logic to it. there was a certain, like, there was a rationale you could see. It was not a rationale we ever expected them to use, which is why everyone was so shocked by it. But you could see the thinking behind the idea. This doesn't make any sense at all. I'm going to draw it again. Look, 7 and 8 here, right here at Maegashira 5 East. One win equals 2 ranks of movement. Okay, that's how that works. Because if you do the math, 7 minus 8 is -1, 6 minus 9 is -3. So that 1 win difference means 2 ranks. Chiyoshoma was up here. That is 2.5 ranks higher. With 1 fewer loss, he should never, ever. The way they do things now, if you go back, 10 years or something, you will see differences in how the Banzuke was made. So, like, don't go into the Sumo database, be like, in 2007, they did it this other way that kind of goes against what you're saying. I'm talking about the last, 3-4 years, okay? For quite a while, this situation does not end up with the guy at 5 East ahead of the guy at 2 West. Especially since they both had losing records. When people were looking up what to do with Kinbozan and looking up, how far have guys dropped with 6 and 9 records, somebody found a situation where in 2012 or something, where Takayasu went from 5 West to 9 West with a 6 and 9 record. Like, he went down 4 ranks. But I went and looked at that Banzuke, and that one, he dropped 4 ranks, whereas from 5 West, but a guy who was 13 West and 9 and 6 went up 2 ranks ahead of him. He just got this enormous promotion, which is completely out of line with the way we do this mathematically. But in the last several years, they do not get away from the math in this way. They will shuffle things. They will absolutely shuffle things. But they do not take a guy who was, I'm going to erase it, so we do it again, 2.5 ranks ahead and 1 win short of another guy, and then ends up behind him. They don't do it. Why did they do it this time? I actually took about an extra 20-30 minutes before I started recording this because I was trying to figure out any kind of an explanation. I have said routinely that even if there are things they do where nobody guessed what they were going to do, you look at it after the fact and you can see, okay, that's what they were thinking. I would have never expected that, but I guess that's the logic. I do not understand this at all. This one makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Now, poor Oshoma, I figured Oshoma was going to jump ahead of all these guys. And that's fine, that made sense. For him to be kept behind all 3, just like with Tamawashi and Gonoyama, and further up, Takayasu and Kirishima to an extent. At a glance, it looks like they are prioritizing the guys who were in the Joy, who had the hardest schedules. But then you look at the records and it's like, what did they do to Chiyoshoma? Why did Chiyoshoma take it in the pants like this? Even if there was no reason for Chiyo not to go to 4 West and then Ichi over to 5 East and then Ura to 5 West if they wanted Oshoma to be here. That would have been fine. Did they have a typo? Did they start drinking early? Did they do from the bottom up so they got drunk late? I don't know. I have nothing for this. This is the most bananas decision I've seen since I started paying attention to sumo at all. And it's only a rank of difference, but in a relative sense, he got absolutely hammer and there's no explanation as to why. The only thing I can figure, is that they saw Chiyo as not having any credible ability to compete at the upper ranks. But can you argue that Ichi Yamamoto is going to be able to compete at the higher ranks, but Chiyoshoma can't? What is that? Ura has at least hung around in this neighborhood for a while. I can understand that. What did Chiyo do? What happened? I don't know. If I'm going to be keeping an eye out for some kind of news because this is going to get people's attention and people are probably going to want to know why this happened. I don't know. There's probably never going to be an explanation, and that's sad because this is dumb. I feel bad for Chiyo. This is terrible. Unless, of course, somebody wanted to be nice to Chiyo, push him out of the Joy so he had an easier schedule, but that's a whole other can of worms and a kettle of fish all wrapped up into one, and I am not getting into it right now. Now we get to a little bit happier stuff. Now, I got Kinbozan wrong, but everybody, I think, got Kinbozan wrong. What I'm going to be happy about, what I'm going to take a little bit of credit for, is that I at least said that this could happen. -3 on the Guess the Banzuke video, if you saw it, I put that out there. I said that might happen. Like, it's not completely outside the realm of possibility. It depends on how they view him, his schedule. Like, I don't understand why they're being this nice to him and just totally screwing Chiyoshoma. Kinbozan did fight Sanyaku, guys. He did have that absolute tail under the Joy schedule. But really, that strength of schedule did not seem like it earned him this much favor, which is why I did not guess this. I did not make this my guess, and I would have been a freaking genius if I had. I did see this as a possibility. When so many people were guessing he would go down 4.5 ranks all the way to 10 East, I was like, there's no way that's happening. And this is probably more likely. That does not mean I thought it was likely. I thought it was like a 2% chance versus a 0.1% chance. Not much at all. But it happened. And okay, cool. I feel good. I don't know if it makes the most sense in the world, but it's at least explicable. Because Kinbozan, 5 West, the couple Sanyaku guys have a reasonably tough schedule. Aonishiki kicked ass, but he was 15 East. So you got this where this guy calculated to 8 West and this guy to 8 East. So it's only a half rank of difference. If these are the guys you shuffle, it's kind of like Tamawashi and Gonoyama. They just decided to do it with guys outside the Joy, which they have not done recently, which is why I think we all figured Aonishiki was going to end up ahead of Kinbozan, regardless of where Kinbozan ended up landing. But this actually kind of works out. Okay, Kinbozan, let's see if he can do something for Maegashira 8 West next time. Aonishiki, he's in a good position to leap into the Joy if he can put together another super good Basho. Around them, Tobizaru. By the way, I gotta scroll up. Hold on. So we've got Ura was 5 East and 7 and 8. Tobizaru was, remember, 3 East and he was 6 and 9. They should be tied. Did Tobizaru get the hammer? Oh, how about this? How about this for a complete dumpster fire of an explanation? Tobizaru had his scandal. So they throw him down with the -3.5, so they overdemote him a little bit, and they leave Ura up here to create this gap just to make a point to Tobizaru. And then Chiyoshoma gets caught up in the mix for no fault of his own. And that doesn't even make sense because they could have just moved Ichi Yamamoto down and kept Chiyo here. I don't know. It remains a mystery. It's unbelievably stupid. They got Hakuoho, Churinaumi, and Onokatsu right, and I say they got it right because I'm looking at the rest of this like nothing was guaranteed once they start making these decisions. And with Kinbozan here, that kind of forces Midori to here, Meisei to here, Shodai over here, Shishi and Atami Fuji. Now, I did have those two switched because I had Kinbozan here with the 3.5 rank drop, and like I said, and was clearly incorrect, I didn't think that they were going to put one guy down 4 ranks but not the other. Well, they did. And I'm a little surprised they did it to Atami at all. Like, I figured if it was going to happen to one guy and not the other, it would happen to Kinbozan. If it was just a question of, which guy do we think is more deserving of being saved a little bit? Because Atami has been hurt. He was in the Joy 2 Bashos ago. Like, it hasn't even been that long. But they decided to bump Shishi a little further ahead. Maybe they're thinking that 5 West, like, if you fight any Sanyaku, then you get that little bit of a bump. Still doesn't. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about Chiyoshoma now. But that's why Atami got pushed back. So, 6 and 9 -4 when they didn't have to do it. Like, this could have worked. They could have swapped these guys. So they are willing to make that move if they think it's correct to do so. We can keep that in mind for future Banzukes. I mean, hopefully we won't have to make that decision too often, but we now know that they'll do that. Pretty much everybody figured on Takano Sho, Toki Hayate, Sada no Umi, Kotoshoho, Roga. I know I said that there was an off chance that Sada no Umi, Kotoshoho, and Roga could get shuffled up in some way. Most likely Roga and Kotoshoho swapping spots, but that didn't happen. Roga stayed at Maegashira 14 West like was expected, so that's fine. Again, as expected, Ryuden and Shonen Umi ahead of everybody else. And then this is not Chiyoshoma level insane, but it's kind of weird. It gets to where they start doing the Juryo stuff, and I think they just argue so much that they end up throwing down whatever the last thing that was said was before they're just like, we're done talking about it. Because, all right, Kaio ahead of those guys, that's fine. But then Nishikigi and Asakoryu were behind everybody else because they had calculated into Juryo, and these guys had calculated into Makauchi, right? Now, I said in the Guess the Banzuke video that they could make this move. They could put these two guys ahead of at least these two guys, if not all 3 of these guys. But the exact reason I said I didn't think it was going to happen was because in order for it to work out with any sort of sense at all, in order to make sure Asakoryu still got a decent demotion, they would have to move Nishikigi up in front of him. And as we saw with Shishi and Atami and all sorts of other circumstances through the last several months, Kota Shoho and Mitakeyumi last time, the guy with the better record has ended up ahead of the guy with the worst record, even though the guy with the worst record was at a higher rank to start with. Now, I'm sure that didn't play into this. I'm sure it was just because, well, we're going to have to keep Asakoryu here, but we want these guys to go down, so the only option is to move Nishikigi back up. But they didn't need to move Nishikigi back up. That was not a forced move at all. They could have just let these two guys move Tamashoho to 16 West and Tochi Taikai to 17 East. If you got all of this exactly correct, props to you, because this one would not have been easy to figure out. Again, I'm not astonished that they made this move, but it definitely works against their recent tendencies. Okay, we know this for the future. This is the kind of move they're willing to make. At least it makes more sense than freaking Chio Show. And that's the breakdown of the Banzuke, as well as me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope things are starting to make a little bit of sense, or if not, they're making as little sense to you as they do to me. The best part of all this, as always, is that it means Sumo is just 2 weeks away. Prediction video out tomorrow morning, American time, and then tier lists and breakdowns and Sumo. So get ready for everything. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.